Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. The NBA draft is here. Hello, everybody. Sean Barnard with you, talking all things NBA draft. And, of course, with a focus on the 76ers. Who will be the guy that the Sixers will select at 3? Will they be picking at 3? We don't know. Could it potentially be the man by the name of Ace Bailey? Is he completely off the board at this point in time? Is it VJ Edgecombe? Is it Trey Johnson? Is it this sharpshooter from Duke, Con Knipple? Is it somebody we haven't heard about? Could Cooper Flag? No, I kid. Hello, everybody. Sean Barnard having some fun, of course. Exciting day. Man, I think about it, Sean. I think about NBA draft the past years for the Sixers. And, of course, we went through all those seasons where they tanked on purpose, so they stick out to us a little bit more than others, but man, it's always an exciting time for your team, whether it is the 76ers, because they're going to get a player that hopefully will have an impact, a solid impact for a few seasons that you'll be cheering on. Maybe if they're good enough, you'll buy a jersey. But Tyrese Maxey is like one of the first examples that pop into my head of like, I was surprised and thankful at the same time. 21st overall pick, I believe. And he was a hell of a grab. You got people on ESPN, Seth Greenberg, saying that the 76ers need to trade Joel Embiid and build the team around Tyrese Maxey from here on out. Malawak was the guy that he was saying go after. Get rid of Embiid tonight. Go after Malawak.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But these are the things that are being discussed. Anyways, exciting time, NBA draft, NBA conversation as a whole. I know it gets you all hot and bothered. How you doing today?
Yeah, the NBA draft is my favorite time of the year, Sean Brace. And you touched on a little bit of it there. The number one reason why for me is just hope. That for the players' perspective here, they've worked their entire lives for this very moment. We'll see the emotions. We'll see the excitement from an organizational standpoint that this is your chance to change everything, that you could get the guy that changes your entire franchise. And there is just this element of hope in the air that this could be the one. This could be the dude that changes everything. And I love that from that perspective. So I get fired up to see the moment that these guys have been working for to match with the teams that will now be their pathway to professionals. And I do think that ultimately this is a solid draft class this year. So it's nice that the Sixers are back in the top of the mix. We have a horse in the race for it, and I'm excited to dive into each of it.
Yeah, I would take it back to years past when the 76ers did have a third overall pick when they drafted Jerry Stackhouse in 1995 out of the University of North Carolina. Joe Smith, I believe Maryland Terp, if I'm not mistaken there, went 1 overall. Antonio McDyess 2. And then Jerry Stackhouse, 3rd overall by the 76ers. Great draft with Sheed, Kevin Garnett, Kevin Garnett, 5th overall out of high school. Theo Ratliff was selected 18th overall in that draft. Pretty good draft there. And it's funny to go revisit some of these previous drafts with the 76ers. Keith Van Horn back in 97, 2nd overall pick out of Utah. Larry Hughes, which is a great conversation. Because the 76ers decided to draft Larry Hughes instead of Paul Pierce, if I'm getting that correct. Dirk was drafted after as well, but still, Dirk was an unknown commodity to most. But Paul Pierce was a stud in college, and they didn't draft him. If I'm getting this right, they didn't draft him because they already had somebody on the team that played that position, something along those lines. And, of course, that's not the way that you go about business these days. So hopefully that won't be the case because I do know that the 76ers have a few guards that are pretty good on this team this year. So let's start there because Quentin Grimes, what's the latest with him and how much does that play into their decision process of drafting a potential guard at the top 3 if they decide to trade back, top 5 picks, whatever it may be. But just pulling the trigger tonight on a guard, does it matter at all that you have Maxey, you have McCain, you want to get Grimes back into the mix? You have some pretty good guard play on this team currently. Should that matter at all when it comes to drafting a player tonight?
Yeah, in an ideal world, you're obviously drafting a balanced team here, but you can only take like you only get one shot at this. And I do think that the proper approach and what has been adjusted in the eyes of front offices is you would rather take the best player available and figure out the rest from there. I did want to bring up Quentin Grimes because there is some news in regard to that in recent hours that the Brooklyn Nets obviously wheeling and dealing a little bit in the mix for some of these trades that have gone on. They're up to 5 first-round picks in this specific draft taking place tonight, and I can't imagine that they utilize all of them. They're the only real team that is a threat to kind of snag Quentin Grimes from the Sixers, but that's looking increasingly unlikely from the standpoint of what these moves are doing from a salary cap perspective for them. So we should be rooting for the Brooklyn Nets to continue putting on or bringing in contracts here because it harms their salary cap outlook. And all that really does from the Sixers perspective is cheapens the price on Quentin Grimes. He will be back in a Sixers uniform. That Daryl Morey has been incredibly open about that, incredibly expressive about that. And frankly, I don't think that he would have made that trade with Caleb Martin on a 4-year contract without that in mind. He's younger. He fits this youth movement. He's still 24 years old. With that being said, I do think from a long-term perspective, he should be the guy looking over his shoulder with the selection if it is VJ Edgecombe, which is my assumption tonight. So it's not ideal that these guys are similar in the positional standpoint, being a ton of guards and all that thing, but it's not a problem that is impossible to overcome. And at this point in the kind of 2 timelines where you have the team now and then you have sort of the future outlook, it's best just to take the best talent and figure things out down the line.
Yeah, again, and that's what I would say about the whole Ace Bailey nonsense. It's like, dude, who plays for the same team their whole career? Like, I get it. You want to get off to a good start. Sam had a good take on Monday. The second in contract is the most important. Understood. But like, you're putting the cart before the horse, bro. And this is professional hoops. You know, it's not as easy as you're making it out to be. And oh, by the way, I didn't think you were all that good. I know Ace Bailey is a talented kid. I am high on him in this draft. Don't get me wrong. Somebody's going to get themselves a hell of a player. But if it's not connecting up here,
yeah,
there's 1,000,001 of them in the league.
And when we talk about like bust potential or guys that do not live up to their expectations, this side of things and the heart are what matter a whole lot more than the basketball skills as far as guys that are going to achieve that and reach that. And for Ace, like I want to continue to reinforce this because I've been an Ace Bailey guy. I continue to hear nothing but nice things about him as an individual, him as a person, him as a personality, him as a teammate here. But what is crystal clear is that he's taking very bad advice and he just should not have the agency representation that he elected to go down this path. I understand the relationship is he played on this AAU team for Sharif Cooper's dad, who is representing him right now. He's just going about this all the wrong ways. And frankly, he's trusting somebody that he shouldn't.
Yeah, he's 18. He turns 19 on August 13th. I just, you know, it's a different day and age. And if the rumors are true, he made $10+ million last year at Rutgers through NIL, through Michael Rubin, through everything involved. Wouldn't shock me if that is the case. And because of look at where he is right now, and that's a majority of that did come from Rubin, from what I understood.
Yeah,
because of the signings.
To interject a little, from what I heard fairly reliably, he pulled in $2 million directly from Rutgers.
Yeah, a lot was Rubin from the signing, and that's what Rubin does because he gets these rookies that are going to be top commodities over the years.
Yeah,
it was a big chunk of change made from the Fanatics / Rubin package, from what I understood. So again, and then $2 million from the NIL from Rutgers, and then did he have a shoe deal?
I don't think so. Not that I've seen. He absolutely will at some point. His real name is Arias, which is just sick. So like you have to do something with that. But so I don't believe he does currently. I could be wrong on that, but he certainly will at some point.
Nike.
Wow, already signed up. So I guess for me critiquing the agency right here, the work is being done on the back end, and I guess I got to tip my hat to that. I just don't like the way that he's handled this whole pre-draft process. According
to Scarlet Nation back in November, Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper are with Nike. Former 5-star recruits Bailey and Harper have brought in some serious energy, and that excitement spilling over sponsorship role. Announced on Thursday, they have signed endorsement deals with Nike. So there you go. That's not chump change. So it doesn't surprise me that you do get to that double-digit $1 million figure. If you're getting 2 from Rutgers, the Rubin deal, because he knows he's smart. You get those guys signed up early. You get them in the back of your pocket for years to come, signing appearances, Fanatics Fest, you name it. And here we are. How did you feel like he handled the combine, the interviews that he was doing? That wasn't at the combine. Where was that? It was the NBA draft. It was the draft.
That was by the draft room. So this was kind of like their walkthrough before draft day tonight. That was in Brooklyn, all that. I honestly thought he handled it fine yesterday. I was cool with everything. I mean, what do you want him to say in these spots? Is sort of
come on. What do you mean? What do I want him to say? I want him to handle it differently. Again, if I'm a team, that is definitely some red flags the way he was answering that question.
So I guess my point would be I separate the decision I wholeheartedly disagree with. Now that you're on that spot and just got to roll with it, I didn't have any issue with anything he said with that. I'll control what I control. I'm worried about basketball was pretty much the prepared responses that he was relying on there.
Yeah.
I think you dig yourself a deeper hole if you're trying to explain things or talk about, I want to go to the team that's best for me and diving deep into those conversations. I thought he did just fine yesterday. What would you have liked to have heard, Sean Brace?
Yeah, well, again, he's the only one that answered the questions like that. He's the only player out of everybody available. It's like, I'm just going to concentrate on basketball and just kept it like that. Like, dude, who do you think you are?
Well, he's the only guy being asked those questions because of the way that he went about it.
Correct. Yes. So I think that would have been that would have been a perfect opportunity to clear everything. Hey, look, and you don't have to go into unbelievable detail, but what's being said out there isn't, I didn't hear from me. Didn't come out of my mouth. I'm here right now. What's the question? Answer those questions. I'm available to go to anybody. I want to do whatever needs to be done. Look, we came up with a pre-draft process. This is who I was going to work out for. We tried to schedule some things. Didn't happen. So here I am, draft night. I will be selected, and whoever drafts me, they're going to get an A-plus player ready to go from day one. Dude, give me some stock answers. Don't be all standoffish, and smug and arrogant. That's what he is. He's a smug and arrogant dude right now.
Two parts to that. For starters, that is a good response just in general there. It's also not what he's trying to achieve here. As I still think the goal is not to be drafted at third by the Sixers. The goal is to get to his...
Yeah. I'm talking, what, you don't think that this is I don't think this is just a Sixers related deal, right?
No, it's certainly not. But my point would be, if he steps up on the stand and then says that exact quote there, you kind of undermine what you've just trying to, stack the cards in your favor from a draft position. So I disagree with this decision wholeheartedly, that he should have approached this from the start of, I want to be drafted to whatever team invests in me and whatever team believes in me. Now that he's gone down this path, I kind of think like it's par for the course. It's what I expected, and honestly a tad above what I expected from him in that yesterday. So if his goal was to increase his draft stock and open himself up for all those teams, that's a great response. I just don't think that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah, again, he probably is going to end up at 6 with the Washington Wizards.
Or Brooklyn. I think Brooklyn is. I have a feeling about Brooklyn.
And there could be potential other teams that would want to trade up and target him. Okay, the 76ers, you're not comfortable there. Let's go ahead and move up. Let's find a way to get Ace Bailey. Again, if I'm a team right now, the way he has handled everything, and then all the way up into that opportunity sitting on the podium where he's smug at 18 years old, like, I'm the man when you ain't done shit. Like, dude, let's go here, man. Rutgers sucked last year. You guys should have absolutely made the tournament, and you did not. How come I heard about Ben Simmons left and right when he didn't make the tournament for LSU? And he was the number 1 overall pick, and everybody threw that in his face. Yet Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey are just getting off scot-free, according to everybody that's on television these days.
Yeah, no, I agree with that point, and I still haven't heard like an acceptable answer from anybody in the Rutgers kind of vicinity of like, why was that? I mean, I watched them plenty myself, and I can tell you that like I don't know their coach.
You went to see them live, didn't you?
Did, and I will say that changed some of my feelings on this whole NIL era as far as how professionalized things were. And clearly they're making their money back on their investments in these guys with parking and concessions and tickets and all this stuff. I was like, wow, this has increased a couple levels. Now, mind you, I would have never gone and seen a Rutgers basketball game in person if Ace Bailey and Dylan Harper weren't there. So I get how this all comes together with that. But yes, like I haven't heard an acceptable answer for why that is the case there. That the reality is they did not elevate the roster around them. Rutgers have never been a strong basketball program, but they also have never been like this off the map.
Elevate the roster around them. You got 2 top 3 potential picks in the NBA draft. Get out the way.
You're right. I don't
elevate the damn roster.
I don't have an answer for why that is not. No, it was a dead roster outside of them.
Well, again, I don't think they needed a roster. You got 2 players, 2 out of the 5. Go in there. It's college hoops. Maybe they need better coaching.
I think
I'll get there with you.
Yeah, I think that is definitely true. And I will note, like, with all due respect, who seems like a nice guy, the Rutgers coach. It's a different skill set when you're coaching Dylan Harper and Ace Bailey versus just running normal college basketball sets and that kind of thing. It felt a lot of just Dylan and Ace go figure it out. And he's a defensive-minded coach. I've heard plenty of that about them. They were okay defensively. They've been like a slower-paced team through the years and under his tenure. I just don't think it was the perfect blend here, and they went for the big splash names rather than actually building out a roster with maybe that money could have been better used for.
Does Ace Bailey get booed when he plays in Philadelphia?
Yeah, I think he will, and I think he should.
Good. Me too. I'm going to lead the charge on that.
I've been like an Ace Bailey guy since the draft pick aligned this way. I've turned heel. Like I'm an anti-Ace Bailey guy moving forward.
There's a couple of you guys. Mark Henry Jr. was a big Ace Bailey guy.
Still kind of is.
Yeah. Well, he ain't getting picked.
No, I'm out. I've seen enough. Like from a pure talent perspective, if you were to get a bought-in version of Ace Bailey who's willing to fill a role for the first couple of years and then see that role continually scale up, that's the perfect guy for this Sixers team. But that guy does not exist. He does not want to fill that role. He does not want to be that guy. And there are too many red flags to ignore at this point. So I'm out on the Ace Bailey experience, and he will be a Sixers villain to me.
Well, VJ Edgecombe, come on down. Is that the guy tonight?
That is the guy tonight. I think it's probably, I would put it at this point, a 75% chance they draft VJ Edgecombe straight up, a 25% chance the Sixers trade down and try and pick up a couple other things. Maybe Brooklyn, maybe New Orleans, something like that. But I do think more likely than not, when this draft ultimately occurs, that when the third pick goes down, VJ Edgecombe will be selected by the Sixers. And I don't want him to be viewed in the eyes of Sixers fans as a consolation prize by any means. This dude is good. This dude is a real deal talent and a guy that will help the Sixers. I think there's going to be a little bit of a reaction similar to last year with McCain, where people were like, doesn't matter. He's not going to make an impact. And then all of a sudden they see him play a little bit. And it's like, oh, there is something here. VJ Edgecombe's athleticism will pop. His work ethic will pop. And for all the character concerns that we brought up with Ace Bailey, he's on the polar opposite end of the equation. You will not find anybody to say a bad word about VJ Edgecombe. And I do think he's going to fit really nicely here in Philadelphia.
Had some good games last year. Only one season at Baylor as a freshman. So extremely young. What is he pushing the tape at 18 as what? 19. He's 19 years old from the Bahamas. Come on down. I love it. Love the Bahamas. All right. So VJ Edgecombe should be the guy at 3. Everyone tells me this is a 2-man draft. It's locked in. Cooper Flagg, Dylan Harper. So Mark Henry Jr. brought this up yesterday. I thought this was a really good take because, you know, there are, again, I don't, whether they're rumors or not, we know how Daryl Morey operates. If this dude can fetch something crazy, it would not shock me that he says, you know what, let's trade back and let's go ahead and get some pieces and maybe a player. I don't know. Let's just play the game that they're going to trade out of that pick and move back. It would not shock me if that is the case that Daryl Morey does. But Mark had a take where he was saying, you know what, man, that would concern me. That would frustrate me, concern me. And I'm not trying to put words in his mouth. I'm pretty sure that he said it would be the wrong way to go about it because it's a 2-horse, 2-player draft at the start that we know lock, stock, and barrel are going 1 and 2. Now Daryl Morey has the first pick. Like essentially this is his draft. He sets the tone, go in there. And oh, by the way, never had a lottery pick. Like if there's been one time that maybe, I'm not saying force it, but you need to find a player that you think will produce and turn into a guy that will be able to contribute for years to come, it's now. And again, I think that maybe falls under the category of under the umbrella of forcing it to a point. But man, like last year was a disaster. And you do eventually have to face an ownership that deals with season ticket holders. The season ticket fan or the 76er fan is disgusted. You got John Kruk saying that he's boycotting the team. Like this isn't a good time to be a 76ers fan. And I do believe that Daryl Morey is on the hot seat. He better be. Although I do like Daryl Morey and I do like his picks from years past. But I'm sorry, when you don't produce, that's all that matters. So he better go out there and draft a player tonight. I am not down with trading back for picks and for everything that you're able to put together. And like, unless it's, you know, the player that maybe has fallen, then I can get down with it. But if the Sixers trade back, what would that mean to you?
Yeah, it depends where. Like, I'm pretty bullheaded on I want to get a top 10 talent in this draft. If they drop to 8, if they drop to 6, I'm not going to be up in arms, especially if they pick up future draft picks or an impact player. If we're talking about getting Herb Jones from the Pelicans and dropping down to 7, you can pretty easily talk me into that for me. Now, granted, if they're trading out entirely or dropping down significantly, I am against that because you have to get something to build off here. And when you look ahead to the free agent market or the cap situation, with this Sixers team, there's not a ton of directions in which they can go. So now is your chance to add an impact player. Now, you guys both hit on points that I really agreed with. I was listening on my drive home yesterday. For starters, I wholeheartedly agree with Mark on the stance of there's no way there's not one guy that Daryl Morey hasn't fallen in love with, that he's had all this time. Like, where the board sits. That Cooper Flagg ain't going to be there. Dylan Harper isn't going to be there. Who is your guy? And I have to imagine that Daryl has had this much time to do whatever interviews, watch whatever film, talk to as many people as he needs to talk to come to that conclusion. I will note there's been a little bit of Trey Johnson push in recent days. I think that is more speculation than anything based in anything, but did want to throw that in the mix. Now, I'm more on your side of things as far as the Daryl Morey hot seat, that I think like it's rare in sports that a season goes as disastrous as the Sixers was last year, and that there is not a guy that catches or has to fall on the sword there. Now, granted, you made the case they cleaned out plenty of in-house personnel, from the PR people to the health people to all those things, and maybe that is where the blame fell. But the bottom line is Daryl Morey is the guy that constructed this roster. He's the guy that sold this plan, and it went as poorly as possible. So I get that Joel Embiid is a problem that he inherited from a health standpoint, but the reality is they're picking third in the draft for a reason based on how last year went. So there has to be some level of change, and I do think that this is a high-pressure season that he and the team are entering.
I agree with everything. Like, there's not a definite answer. Like, Josh Harris could be in love with Daryl Morey, and there's a lot to like. But
he's done a good job overall. Like, I still think that's important.
And he went out there and made some decisions and brought in Paul George, trying to run it back. Like, that's another reason why I start to feel like this could potentially be trade back time, because what will be different? No matter who you draft tonight, how much playing time are they getting next year?
And not a ton. I mean, they're going to be an impact player like VJ Edgecombe. If that's the pick, okay, I would probably guess he's a 25 per minute type of guy.
Really?
And
okay,
yeah, I think so.
That's a little bit more than what I would hope you're right. But I wasn't even pegging that much. But go ahead.
But I mean, even with that point, like the Sixers' outlook this year is not going to be dependent on Trey Johnson or VJ Edgecombe or Ace Bailey. Like, the outlook is how healthy is Joel Embiid? Can Jared McCain, what he provided last year, is that real, or was this a small sample size? Can Paul George bounce back? Those are the factors that are going to be more prevalent to what is this season outcome here. So I think that should be kept in mind from all Sixers fans' perspective. But there's also like the two timelines thing. Like, you would ideally like to get a guy that can grow with Maxey and McCain moving forward, potentially Grimes as well. That there is this post era after Joel Embiid that all of a sudden doesn't look as bleak. They are moving in that direction and have taken some steps to progress that process. So that's probably the other side of things to keep in mind.
All right, we have some comments coming in from the peanut gallery. Let me get this. I got Ryan Beef Coyle. You know him, you love him. He said, these guys are booing Ace Bailey when he comes to Philly. Never change, boys. I think everybody's booing him, right? Like, the word that we have gathered over the past couple of weeks is he doesn't want to play in Philadelphia.
Yeah, I don't think he's aware.
And say that fit and all that. That's fine. Oh, the fit. No. You don't get to say that about this city, about this franchise, about this team. And then you know what? It's all good. Philly loves me. I'm a hooper. No. That's not how it works. Never has, and it's never going to work like that in this city. We're always going to have that chip on our shoulder, that aggression. That's what makes Philly Philly. If you don't want to play here, you're going to hear about it. And that doesn't matter if it's basketball. It doesn't matter if it's baseball. We got plenty of examples in every league we can go back on, and players not wanting to come here. And they've heard it. So he's not the first, and he won't be the last. You're damn right, Ace Bailey. Philly's taking this personally. And I'll put my hand in the air. And like I said, when he stepped up on that podium just 2 days ago, I'm like, all right, this is the first time I get to hear from Ace Bailey. And then he's smug and he's arrogant and didn't want to answer any questions about anything. Nah, I'm just concentrating on basketball. All right, dude. He's going to get schooled real fast, man. The league ain't that easy.
Yeah, I don't think Ace Bailey is cognizant or aware of the enemies that he's kind of created here. That I don't think he sort of has the touch or the feel that like this does impact. Like, people are going to be mad about this. I don't think that the 2 and 2 have connected with his head or in his camp here. That I do think that he'll be a Sixers. Like, I mean, there's two directions this goes, right? Like, if Ace Bailey ends up a stud and is tearing up the NBA, the frustration immediately shifts to like, Sixers, why didn't you just take him anyway? Like, this dude was here the whole time. if he's like average or not good, then all of a sudden it's like kind of you can pile on him a little bit. So I don't think this will be like a long-term, like he's a villain forever. But I do think like rookie season when things are starting out that there will be boos in the crowd.
Oh, yeah, and we're going to take the under on those props on DraftKings Sportsbook.
Yeah.
That's for damn sure. All right. Yeah, look, man, I'm getting all hot and bothered about the 76ers here on draft day on June 25th. I haven't cared about the 76ers this much since the start of last year.
I mean,
it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, this is. And I will note, like, I still like want to make a separator of like the Ace Bailey's camp. I get he has to wear this all, but like his teammates went to his birthday party. I'll put that. Like Ace Bailey is like liked by his teammates there. Like this is not full Bo Callahan.
That's my issue. It's like, dude, you know, you had an opportunity to get out there. And I'm not sitting here saying I wanted an answer that I would be, you know, deemed satisfactory. I'm not telling you that. But I just wanted a little, okay, this is the first time after all this Ace Bailey hype, all this conversation, not even just Sixers related, you know, just think about people that are like somewhat in tune with the NBA draft. Here it is, front and center this week. Oh, Ace Bailey. And then that's how he's operating. Like, dude, you are definitely making some enemies out there. People are definitely going to be pulling against you, not just in Philadelphia. So we'll see how it plays out. And again, he's not the first one to come into the NBA draft arrogant. He's a top 5 pick. Kid's got a world of potential. But there have been a lot of players before him, a lot of players after him that bring that P word in there and don't deliver on any of the promises either. So we'll see. And especially when they end up in an organization like the Washington Wizards. Good luck, bro.
Or the Charlotte Hornets, like, man,
or the Charlotte Hornets.
Yeah, what your goal is here. The last note that I want to note on Ace, and I heard Sam's point about the second contract. He's absolutely right. Like, that's the most valuable thing in sports. But what I think is really short-sighted from Ace's camp is it's incredibly rare in general for wings in particular to make a day one impact. That just like the way that these guys' games progress, the guards and big men are both able to make more of an immediate impact. Like when you look at the track record, a guy like Paul George averaged 7.9 points per game as a rookie, played less than 20 minutes per game. Kawhi Leonard was a 3-and-D role player for the first couple seasons of his career. Jason Tatum was a dude who played a low usage role until a couple seasons into his career. And obviously these guys have grown into some of the premier wings in basketball, but it takes some time. I don't think going to a spot where you get to shoot the ball 20 times a game is that much of like an advantage here. And I also like I've seen Kelly Oubre average 20 points per game for the Hornets and be on a veteran's minimum last year. I've also seen Jonathan Kuminga like barely have a role for the Golden State Warriors and get paid because of it. So like, while it's true, you got to stack the coins and put yourself in the best spot for that second contract. I don't think that just means putting up statistics.
Well said. Sean Barnard all over it. Couple other comments. Sorry, Johnson checking in. Never seen someone want to be a Wizard so bad. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. They were even saying if the Wizards had the number 1 overall pick, Cooper Flag would go back to college.
For real. Like, seriously, I thought like when the draft was shaking out, like the Sixers would be this desired location because look at these other teams. But it seems like Ace Bailey taking the opposite approach here.
I just think you look at McCain, you look at Maxey, and it should probably excite you. Like there's 2 draft picks. Those guys were studs. Very odd. And, you know, again, Philadelphia, we love our teams here. So whatever. Moving on. Bruce, love it. Apparently New Orleans is really interested in Bailey. Would you trade down to 6 if New Orleans included someone like Trey Murphy in a deal, Sean Barnard?
Short answer, yes, absolutely there. That is a team in particular that has my attention there. The finances are a little bit tough to get to Trey Murphy, and the biggest concern, like this is a critique you can throw at Daryl Morey, is that there's player options for Kelly Oubre, for Andre Drummond, and Eric Gordon, which essentially means these guys control their destiny. I find it hard to believe that they would opt in under the premise of them being sent down to New Orleans, which is kind of what would have to happen in this case. You could potentially move some other pieces if you want to bring in the Paul George conversation, that kind of thing. I don't see them going to that extent, although there's been some rumors with Utah. But point being here, if this is just in a vacuum looking at this type of move, if you can drop to get Trey Murphy or Herb Jones and still make a selection, you sign me up for that 10 times out of 10.
Well, just trade Paul George and we're going to win the NBA championship. So we know how that works. So let's make it happen any way they possibly could. Yeah, kid. Speaking of trades, talk to me about what's going on in Boston. And is there anything real with Jaylen Brown potentially being moved regardless of the 76ers? I just don't understand. I get the Porzingis, Drew Holiday, but it's got to stop there. They cleared a ton of money Jaylen Brown being discussed. Tatum's out next year. What?
Yeah, they've cut their payroll basically in half over these past 48 hours there. And that was the goal. This was the like more so than ever before across the NBA, we're going to see financially driven trades. That's just the effects of the new CBA that's been put in place. And we're finally seeing them kind of brought to the surface. That now is sort of the inflex point, I would say, where these effects are being brought in. The Celtics knew this was the case coming into the offseason. They basically made the decision last year that we just won the NBA championship. Let's just kick it down the line, pay everyone, and figure things out next summer. There were already these big decisions looming, and then Jason Tatum tore his Achilles, and that basically forced the hand. So these are both financially driven decisions. I honestly think they did pretty well on both trades there. I think Anthony Simons is like a pretty good player and a guy that financially puts him in a much more advantageous position. And I think Niang is going to splash threes for that team as much as people are, not as fired up about that, it seems there. So I get why they did it. I do think it stops here. If you blow them away with a Jaylen Brown offer, I could see it happening because let's not forget, while they won the championship 2 seasons ago, there was a whole lot of the noise of can Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown play together before that. And I get that winning is the best deodorant. But if there is any thoughts or are these two our long-term pieces, Tatum's the guy and Brown's not. So this could be the opportunity to cash out and start from scratch next season.
Niang isn't that bad of a three-point shooter. 39% career average. All right, is he hitting the clutch shot, though? Can you bank on George Niang hitting that shot when you need that clutch three-pointer into the game? Sure, catch and shoot if he's in the corner. All right, regular season, January, March, okay. But when it comes to playoff time, is Georges Niang really a guy that you want on the floor?
If the Celtics season is decided on a Georges Niang 3-point attempt, I think there's bigger problems in itself right there. I think he's going to be an excellent regular season filler, that a guy that just, splashes threes and fits their identity. I think he will be a part of the postseason rotation, but we don't even know how hard the Celtics are going to go next season. There is a world where they try and just do a 1-season tank, put themselves in this position. I think the East is too bad to really have any sort of movement in that. But if they trade Brown and really go young, you can talk yourself into that. And with Tatum, no clear timeline, I don't see it ultimately working out this way. But I'd guarantee that thought has at least crossed their mind.
Give me a percentage on Jaylen Brown being traded here.
20.
Really?
Yeah.
Dude, Julian Edlow is going to be on the show today. I just feel like if Boston moves a guy like Jaylen Brown, no matter the return, that fan base is going to riot.
I mean, I don't think it happens. I still at 80% that it doesn't here. I think there is a little bit something to again, we've all forgotten because they won an NBA championship and it's been kumbaya since that point. But there was some legitimate back and forth of can Tatum and Brown win together? Are these guys, their skill sets too repetitive playing next to each other and all that side of things. So with Tatum on the sideline, Tatum's been incredibly expressive in every single opportunity he gets to be Boston is my home. I'm so appreciative of the history of this franchise. I want to represent the Boston Celtics. Hasn't exactly gotten that with Jaylen Brown. And he still mostly said the right things in those opportunities. But if the relationship were to fracture, this is kind of the spot where you can get your get off point and then you can really build forward with Tatum moving forward. All
right. We're off and running NBA drafts. Shams said a couple weeks ago that this is going to be the craziest offseason in NBA history. We were off to a pretty decent start right now.
Yeah.
I mean, the season just ended.
Yeah, 2 days ago or 3 days ago at this point. So yeah, it is crazy. And again, it is CBA driven. That is the why of this, is that a lot of teams are in some tough financial decisions.
Yes.
Self-inflicted, mind you, is this is sort of intentional to create a little bit of more parity within the league and teams making it more difficult to build these teams. The Celtics in itself as an example here, this is an organization that I think the NBA should be rewarding in the way that it's homegrown. They went about it the right way. They drafted Jaylen Brown. They drafted Jason Tatum. They have some key pieces there, but it doesn't exactly work like that from the money standpoint. So, yeah, there will be a lot of turnover still coming.
Yeah, I did see that they were talking about this on ESPN this morning, that the general manager, I want to say, from the Denver Nuggets was yeah, we're one injury away from having to trade Joker. And
Insane.
It was just
insane that he said that. He offered that. That was in his monologue. He's we're being very conscious. The original question was phrased like, are you offering Jokic an extension, which he's eligible this offseason? And his reply was like, we're for sure going to offer it. I'm not 100% sure that he's going to take it. And we have to be very mindful about what positions we put ourselves, because we're one injury away from being forced with making a really tough decision that I never want to even consider. And that would be trading Nikola Jokic. I'm just like, why would you even offer that? Like, you couldn't beat that information out of me if I was in his shoes.
Well said. I agree with you 100%. I didn't even see it, so I'm glad we just stumbled into it. But I did, what I took away from it was just how tough it is right now financially for these teams. They have to be so careful with how they go about it. And to be honest with you, I didn't even take the quote on the bottom line of the crawl like you just said there. That's interesting. I have to go back and listen to that audio, read up a little bit more. My take was like he was just being honest with the assessment of, yeah, like if we don't win, a player gets hurt, Joker could say, I want out. That was my takeaway from just reading the quote on the bottom of the screen. Interesting.
Yeah, he's right about the overall point, but again, like, you just didn't have to say it, man. No. And again, like, I encourage you to watch the video. He straight up offers it. Like, he like slid it in like midway through his reply. And I was like watching it first time, I'm just like there was just no need for him to go out and say that. So it is like a true point that GMs, it's tougher than ever to manage things. And that's why we're seeing a lot of these trades that like in the Drew Holiday trade here, basically the biggest reward is that Simons has less years remaining on his deal. And while like you can make the cases of talent, and Drew, I guess they want to lean into that defensive identity down there in Portland, like that's the why. We're going to see way more of the why of trades being made purely based on the contract that is attached to these guys' names and not as them as talents.
All right, we're going to see anybody big. Is there going to be anything that shakes the earth tonight as far as a trade, potential, something leading to down the way? We're all trying to, like Windhorse, where we're like, wait, pay attention. Is there anything that's going to shock us tonight, in your opinion?
I think certainly. I think there will probably be multiple shocking moments. I think the Oklahoma City Thunder trade up. There's been a lot of smoke about that. So, a couple days removed from winning an NBA championship, that they're probably climbing into the top 10 and making some sort of trade there. It wouldn't surprise me if we see like a legitimate Ace Bailey slide to where he drops like notably here. I think Jeremiah Fears is a guy that's going to go far higher than he's been talked about largely. And I think he probably sneaks into the top 5 of that conversation here. And I probably think there will be a couple of trades that are just puzzling, that we don't know the full why for them when it happens at the time. So I expect this to be the full launch point of what you mentioned could be the craziest NBA offseason of all time.
Let's go. All right. And then give me one player that potentially will be out of the top 10 that you're putting your seal of approval on, that, you know what, no matter where they end up, watch out for this guy next year and years to come. Is there somebody that you think at the back end of the draft that we should be paying attention to?
I think Nick Clifford would be my answer to that, as far as a guy that I think, regardless of where he lands, is going to find out a way. Coming from Colorado State, he's on the older side. I think he's 24 already, might even be 25, but a good athlete, good defender, can do a little bit of everything. He's just good at basketball, can connective pass, can shoot the three well. That's a guy that I think is a smart, high IQ guy that wherever he lands, he's going to find a way to carve a rollout for himself. You can kind of see him mocked anywhere between like 14 and 25-ish type of range there. You're going to be walking into a day one high-level role player. I would be willing to invest and bet in Nick Clifford if I was in a spot as an organization.
All right. And tell you what, down in Dallas, they got something going right now. There was something said earlier today that got my attention, because you want to talk about pressure for a number 1 overall pick. That's not there in Dallas for Cooper Flagg. He's got players around him. Anthony Davis, of course, Kyrie. He's got a pretty good head coach in Jason Kidd, right? Klay Thompson. Like, he's got players. He's going into a spot where he can breathe like a hell of a lot easier than it was at Duke, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, top 30 general manager, a guy that, steers them in the right direction constantly with Nico Harrison there. It's going to be an interesting year down there in Dallas. They're just such a theoretical team. Like, even when you mentioned Kyrie, we'll see when he even plays, or if he even plays this year, and how soon that is. Like, they're going to have to bring a guard. He's coming off the injury as well. Anthony Davis is a guy that has the injury concerns. Like, he obviously, we'll see how many games he's on the floor for. So in theory, that team is going to be tough. It's going to be a contender, but like, it is a very theoretical team in the same way.
Paul George doesn't get traded tonight, right?
I don't think so. I would put that less than Jaylen Brown percentage, but there's been a couple rumors and a little bit of buzz that has popped on the timeline.
Joel Embiid doesn't get traded tonight, right?
Absolutely not to that one. And like the same thing that I'll voice, it's Paul George is a more minimized version of this with Joel. You're going to have to pay to get off him at this point. Like what team, when we bring up these financial circumstances we are just talking about, are going to sign on to pay this dude $70 million 4 years from now? I just don't see another organization jumping at that chance. And from a Daryl Morey perspective, he's all about value. He's all about maximizing. You're trading a dude at his low point, and you're just not going to recoup remotely close to fair value there. Like the best version of what Joel Embiid could be is so much higher than what the best possible trade return would be that I just don't think it makes any sense from any direction.
I'd sign you as my general manager. I like where you're at on that one. Finally, Jared McCain. Chance he gets traded tonight.
The only way I would see it happening was be if they're trying to move up to get to that second pick for Dylan Harper. But to that same breath, like if the Spurs think it's a weird fit with Harper as another guard, why would they be interested in Jared McCain? So I don't really see it happening with Jared McCain in particular here. I think that he should and will be a member of the Sixers moving forward, at least in the short term here. There's pretty much no circumstance where I'd be willing to trade McCain. And while I don't think the Sixers share quite that same sentiment, as if you read between the lines, there's still a lot more pro Maxey stuff than pro McCain from an organizational phrasing thing there. I believe what I saw last year, that I think that is legitimate. I think that's here to stay. And that's a guy I want being a long-term part of the Sixers.
I also trust Mark Henry Jr. as well. And he loved Jared McCain. So,
yeah,
you know, he's playing out, or he's panning out right now. Can't wait to see him back out there. All right. Finally, we'll end on this. Ja checking in. The rumors were never confirmed. Ace never said those words himself. Totally agree. Ja. That's why I said he had an opportunity to handle everything that has been said when he was at the podium just 2 days ago. And he chose not to, and he wanted to be smug, wanted to keep it moving, didn't want to get into it. I'm over it, dude. I'm over it. And you can think what you want, and people can trust their own eyeballs and their own gut instincts and whatever you want. This isn't the first time we've heard stuff that didn't come out of a player's mouth, but that was my exact point. Like, hey, man, this was a moment where you could say, those words never were said by me. You never heard those come from me. This is what the truth is. And we didn't get that. So I'm out on Ace Bailey. I'm going to boo the hell out of that kid forever.
And even beyond words, like we can evaluate actions here. It's fact that he's the only American prospect that did not work out for a single NBA team. It's fact that he canceled the workout with the Sixers. That for sure, the Sixers had a hotel booked, had dinner reservations, had breakfast plans, had a workout scheduled, and the night before that Ace Bailey said, actually, I'm not coming. Like that's not normal practice there. So while like I think at times it gets piled on with Ace that there is a little bit more of a frustration with him than probably is the actuality. The bottom line is those things still did occur.
Yeah. Great stuff, Sean. Dialed in. You're going to be doing what tonight? You're live with DraftKings. Where can we find you? Can we watch you? Is it just reading you? What do you got?
Yeah, I'll be writing today. So there'll be some stuff coming out on socials, but I'll be doing live draft grades for the blog on DraftKings. So shout out to DK Network. I'll have live grades for every single pick of the first round, hopefully squeezing in some extra content draft related. So I'll be all over the place on their website. So check out dknetwork.com.
Boom. Nice work, Sean. Great stuff as usual. Oh, final one. Give me one potential overseas, a European player. Who should we be paying attention to?
Noah Essengay is the guy that's going to be probably the biggest confusing mark for this, that he seems to be making somewhat of a push into the top 10, top 15. I don't fully see it with him, to be honest, but Toronto is a popular name. He just left his overseas team to be a part of the draft process here. I'll note that because his teammate Ben Saraf is not, and I frankly like Saraf as a much better prospect, but Essengay is 6'9", moves very well. He's lengthy, switchable, the guy that you can buy into here. He will probably be the first European off the board and likely has played his way into the top 10, a rapid riser in recent weeks.
See, we're just throwing stuff out. Look at Sean's on it, man. We didn't discuss this. He's on it. I'm telling you right now, one thing hit me the other day. I go, how come there's 1,000,001 NFL mock drafts, NFL mock experts, draft experts? But when it comes to the NBA, man, there are fewer out there to choose from. Sean Barnard's going to be on a television screen coming soon over these next few drafts. I promise you that. Great stuff, Sean. You'll be on my computer today over there at DK Network. And then, of course, recapping it all tomorrow on the Daily Ticket. Looking forward to that. Enjoy the draft, my friend.
I appreciate it. I'm excited.
All right, good stuff. As always, if you miss anything at foxphlgambler.com, don't touch that dial. Coming up, we got a jam-packed day of programming. Let's see here. 6 o'clock, Swing It and Ding It, followed by Football is King at 7 o'clock with Ryan Beefcoil and Nick McClay. Keep it locked right here to the Gambler.